Thank you very much. And Nimit, I apologize for going ahead of you. It was actually meant to be the other way. But my name is Eugene Morozov, and I represent a very broad and eclectic, mostly IT community who share one thing in common. They believe that technology can substantially improve our lives. And so I'm here essentially representing these folks, and allow me to start by extending the word of thanks to our hosts today, GBA, but of course also the Fairfax City Hall and the legislative and executive powers that were with us earlier today, and some still may be with us. I want to say that being here today is simultaneously an honor, an opportunity, and a big challenge. An honor because something really historical is going on today, and that is the governments in various shapes or forms are actually sitting in the audience and listening and asking questions and are showing their potential as customers eventually. And this is something we have not seen in the many, many years prior to this. So I think we are in a very historical moment in this country's history, especially given the background of changes in the regulatory environments that we heard about earlier today, and an attempt by, there's Paul Dowding joining us finally. Hello, come on, Paul, please join. Yes, you're late, but that's all right. I'm a filler for now, so. It's a historical opportunity because finally there's a real possibility of government users and government customers who are indeed the biggest customer in the world to pay attention and reap the benefits of technologies that have been developed by the best and the brightest minds in the world. It is an opportunity because most of us here as vendors of different software, they want to show it to customers. They want to show it to you. They want to say, this is what we do. This is why it's better than the competition. This is why you should go with us. So it's a great opportunity to talk to you today. But it's also a huge challenge because we have to convince the government that we can be trusted. We have to convince all branches of government that this is no joke and they're not going to go to jail for saying yes to a contract with us. That they're not going to suffer the consequences of unvetted solutions. So it's always a challenge. And a BMM reference that Gerard was using today is just one tool that can be used by government officials, a critical, but only one tool, apart from do their own research that they should do before really understanding what type of contract they're signing up. It's also a challenge that government is the most difficult customer in the world. Think of the lengths of the process you have to go in the B2G circumstances as opposed to B2B or let alone B2C. So we're talking about potentially a year-long sales cycle with numerous documents you have to prepare as part of responding to a request for proposal issued by the government. So very, very difficult. Now, what I'm here to present today very briefly in the remaining few minutes, kindly shared with me by our master of ceremony, 5 to be exact, is the following. Half of the world is voting this year. About roughly half of all countries in the world are having elections. Let me ask you, what do you think is the common problem that exists in just about every single country that votes this year? What's the biggest problem? I'm hearing corruption. What else? Fraud. What else? Tampering. What else? Trust. See, like many, many options here. They can be all summarized by one word. And that word, which again, every single country shares in the world, is doubt. Doubt in election results as a result of all of those things that you said, corruption and bribery and errors and whatever else is there. So resulting is doubt. The question is, how can we remove, and can we remove doubt from election results? Turns out, yes. There are technologies today in a very simplified form, I'll describe it in the remaining 2.5 minutes, and that is a local election official. By the way, how many of you know how many Leos are there in this country? Anyone? How many local elections, how many counties? Each county has their own. How many counties are there in this country? Close. 3,142 to be exact. And each one has their own laws. Each one has their own ballot structure. Each one has their own way of compiling and maintaining the list of registered voters. Now imagine the complexity of that happening. But if we assume that a Leo is competent and they know what their ballot should look like according to the local legislature at the moment, and we know that there's a list, whether from DMV or some other source, of registered and eligible voters according to local law, and all elections in the U.S. are local, even presidential elections are all local, and so local people, local legislature determines those rules, how the ballot should be structured, how the list should be maintained. And also local law determines the third component is the timing, when and for how long people shall vote. So if we are given at DeVote a list of registered voters with a way to contact people, let's say their phone number or email, or an account on LinkedIn, for example, if they give us the actual ballot with all the interlocks or interdependencies between different questions, it's actually more complicated than it may sound. It's not necessarily a multiple choice or pick like 2 out of 10. There's many different complicated rules, but they're all known in advance. So if we get the ballot, we get the list, we get the timing, we can conduct indisputable elections by having the voting actually done through establishing a verifiable environment on your mobile device, running a C++ code of the Saver protocol that we have on the device, without the use of any third-party software, none. And then recording from the device directly to a large public, let's say reputable chain, where the results can be shown as in a tally format, we can prove mathematically that you voted without knowing how, thus being compliant with the critical constitutional requirement in this country, which is a permanent separation of voter ballot and voter affidavit, otherwise called as true anonymity. So with any questions, please, in the remaining minute, I want to properly introduce our next speaker. Nimit Sawhney is a true pioneer of the remote ballot marking and return. His company Voatz actually conducted elections for several million Americans already, mostly expats or people under Uokava Act. I'm sure Nimit will tell us more about it. But they are courageous people that were not afraid of coming in and saying, we can do it, irrespective of what the reaction was. They went in, they offered, they won tenders, and I'm very proud to be associated, just know Nimit, hopefully as a friend. Nimit, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eugene. Hi, everyone. I'm back. Now it's working. So I was talking about the origins of Voatz. They were really accidental. My brother and I were at South by Southwest at this hackathon called Hack to the Future several years ago. And what really intrigued us about the competition was they had a Bitcoin as a prize. So this was the early years, 2014, pre-hype. And we hadn't yet dived into the technology at all. So we read the paper the morning of. The first time I read it, I didn't understand. And my brother said, read it again, it's brilliant. So I read it again, and then things clicked. And what really appealed to us was the data security aspect of a system like that. The money side never appealed to me, still doesn't. My apologies to all the fans. But the data security side was really, really fascinating. And so we thought, what's the most ambitious thing we could build, the most audacious thing? And we built this election system from scratch, went and presented. You code all night at a hackathon, as you might be familiar. So it was a lot of fun. And then we pitched and fortunately won the first prize. So that led to a sequence of events, coming back to Boston, leaving my job, and started Voatz. Initially, it was very tough. We did not know how elections are actually conducted in the US, so we had to learn. We talked to a lot of election officials around the country, politicians, voters. And then once we had a sense of what we need to do to actually go from a hackathon to a project people could actually use, we started building. We created a company, got some initial funding. Techstars was the accelerator which selected us. And then I ended up doing our first government election in 2018 with the state of West Virginia in the midterms. So that's a kind of an accidental origin of the company. Okay, thanks. Yeah, you can go next. So in our minds, what was the problem we were solving? It was a couple of problems, access and identity, which are the two key challenges of modern democracy. How do you give access to people who traditionally don't have access? And then how do you make sure with the perils and advantages of modern technology, how do you make sure it's one person, one vote? How do you accurately identify people? So that's kind of how we originally thought about it and continue to feel that those are our two sort of pillars. So we are the first and only such system to actually be used by governments in several parts of the world now. So we've completed, as of last month, 135 elections, 7 countries. Most of our work has been in North America, both the US and Canada initially, and then very recently Mexico. So was used in the Mexican federal elections for the first time, where overseas Mexicans were able to vote online. The first time in their history. One of the challenges, as you might imagine in this space, is there's a lot of opposition to voting online. People think that if you connect something to the internet, all hell is going to break loose. So a lot of our work has been to counter that kind of prevailing mindset that just because something is connected to the internet doesn't really make it unsafe. In fact, you need to build systems which can survive in the presence of threats, and not just survive, they can thrive. Otherwise, we'll never be truly free. So it's been used now in 32 counties across the country. Both major parties have used it in several states. In the US, it's currently only available to military voters, people living overseas, and in some states, voters with disabilities. And hopefully more and more demographics get access as time goes by. On the political side, everybody can vote. So if you're going to be attending the Michigan Democratic Party convention next weekend, you'll be able to vote. Similarly, if you're going to be at the one of the GOP conventions, you'll be able to vote as well. On the international side, things have been more fast. Canada amended their laws, so 15 cities in Ontario used the system for their municipal elections in 22, where everybody was allowed to vote. So that's one more baby step. In Mexico, as I said, overseas Mexicans were allowed to use the system for the first time. And another exciting project which is launched in Florida, where all 15 million registered voters are able to use the system. So here you're not actually voting for somebody or an actual election, you're actually voting on bills. So as new bills come up in the State House, State Senate, you actually get to vote. Your elected representatives get to see that in real time, and then you can see the score as to how your district's trending compared to your elected representatives. So as you can imagine, that kind of transparency on the blockchain is causing a lot of turmoil, but we call it healthy turmoil. So if you want to look it up, just go to digitaldemocracyproject.org. It's managed by a local nonprofit, but everybody uses Voatz. And Gerard talked about the BMM, so we were quite honored and glad to be one of the early participants. I think it's a great initiative, and I strongly recommend other solutions to go through that process. I think there's a lot of learning, and it's helpful to spread the model industry-wide because, as Gerard mentioned, there aren't any comparable models which help sort of buyers get that level of confidence. So that's a little bit about us. We're out of time, but if you have any questions, look us up, or you can find me downstairs. Thank you.